Hello and welcome. You're looking live at the Chapter 8, not practice test, but just test. With me, Mr. Goldman, and the third period crew. Say hi, third period crew. Woohoo! All right. The 6 angles at right are put into a bag and mixed up. We've all done this. If you reach into the bag and pull one angle out at random, what is the probability the angle you draw is an acute angle? Explain how you know. Well, first I'm going to circle all the acute angles. That's one, that's one, that's one. This is not one because right angles are not acute. So there are 3 acute angles. Remember, probability, desired outcomes over total outcomes. So the probability of acute is 3 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3/6 or 1/2. A lot of you said or 50%. I accepted that as well. You needed to show some kind of explanation though. How did you get 3/6? Number 2, in the U.S., approximately 8.3% of the population has diabetes. Maryland's rate of diabetes for its residents is 12% higher than the national average. What is the rate of diabetes in the state of Maryland? Show and or explain your work. I want to find a multiplier that will increase something by 12%. My multiplier to increase by 12%. This is similar to the problems we had on the last test. So I'm going to start with 1 because that's 100%. And I'm going to add 12% as a decimal, which is 0.12. And I'm going to get 1.12. So this is my multiplier. I'm then going to take 8.3% and I'm going to multiply it by my multiplier. And I get 9.2, what do I get? Oh, there it is right there, already on the phone. 8.3 times 1, no, 1.12, 9.296%. And you would, of course, I've explained this a little bit more, being what this percent actually means, right? That it's the rate of diabetes in the state of Maryland. You could have also multiplied by just 0.12, but then you have to add that to 8.3 to get the 9.296. Moving on. Solve for x, show all work. I'm going to use fraction busters for all 3 of these. My only denominator here is 3, so I'm going to multiply by 3 over 1 times 7/3 x equals 1 times 3. The 3's cancel. I have 7x equals 3. Divide by the coefficient. X equals 3/7. Here. I have 2 denominators now, 3 and 5. So my common denominator is 15. So I'm going to multiply 15 over 1 times all of these terms. The people that did this step did very well. The people that did not all made little mistakes. Cross simplify. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 times 7 is 35x plus 6 equals 15. Subtract 6 from both sides. I get 35x equals 9, not 11. Divide by the coefficient. And I get x equals 9/35. They were nice. They used similar numbers for all these, right? So again, our common denominator is still 15, even though there's now 3 terms that are fractions. So we'll do 15 over 1 times 7/3 x plus 15 over 1 times 2/5 equals 15 over 1 times 8/3 x minus 15 times 1. The 3 cancels. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 7 is 35x. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 8x is 40x minus 15. Now we just solve. I'm going to move the smaller x, so I'm going to subtract 35x from both sides. I'm left with 6 equals 5x minus 15. I'm going to add 15 to both sides, which gives me 21 equals 5x. Divide by the coefficient, and I get x equals 21 over 5. Woohoo!
Is this going to be on Classroom?
Yes.
Okay.
This test and now that question will both be posted on Google Classroom. Thank you, C.B. Williams. Bonita needs to report her bowling average for the monthly bowling newsletter, and she wants to represent her bowling abilities as accurately as possible. Here are her scores for her last 20 games, and they're all listed there. I'm going to take a moment off camera to write those in numerical order. Be right back. All right, and we're back. So I've rewritten these in numerical order. Help Bonita by giving out some information. What are the mean and median? Well, for mean, I need to add all these up and then divide by 20 because there's 20 different numbers. If I do that, I'm going to get that the mean is 129.8. The median, that's why I ordered all of these. I have to take the middle number. And in this case, the middle two numbers, because if I cancel these out, I got 96, cancels that out. Walk this in. This is a good strategy if you're trying to find the mean. Just cross out 1 from each side. There, 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 and I'm left with these two. You must take the average of those two. So the median is 131.5. Right, add them together, divide by 2, or just look at it and know that 131.5 is in the middle of those two numbers. So those are our two measures of central tendency. Which one should she use in the newsletter and why? This was not a great question. They're very similar. So either answer works. It doesn't really matter in that case. So I accepted a lot of stuff here. Does the data have any outliers? The outlier would be 201. If you said that that was an outlier, it's sort of on the borderline. It's hard to tell specifically. If you made a case for that it wasn't an outlier, that was okay too. Should it be mentioned? What I was looking for here was no. No, because outliers affect the mean. They affect the average. So when an outlier should be mentioned is if the average is really high, but it's because of the outlier. Since the average, the mean, is lower than the median, that means that the outlier is not affecting the data very much. So no, because the mean and median are very close, and the mean is lower than the median. This relates to that question we did in class about the basketball players, the coach trying to figure out between the two girls, and one girl had scored like 55 points in a game, and that made it look like she scored as many points always as the other player who was more consistent. So that's usually when there's an outlier, we want to go with median because outliers affect the mean. Since this outlier didn't, there's a lot of right answers that could be said, but this is probably the best. All right, moving on. Number 5, when Lila's friend Curtis lost the school election for class treasurer, she was shocked. Lila thought Curtis would win for sure. Lila suspects there might have been some vote tampering, so she decides to sample about 30 people to find out who they voted for. That very evening, Curtis's birthday party. So the same guy, Curtis, lost the election and now it's his birthday party. There was 30 people attending. What a perfect opportunity. Lila asked each person at the party who they voted for, and just as she thought, everyone at the party had voted for Curtis. Now Lila is planning to storm the principal's office in the morning and demand a revote. What do you think? Is this a wise move on Lila's part? Why or why not? Explain completely. This is not a wise move on Lila's part. Not a wise move. Why not?
Well, because like usually like when you invite someone to your birthday, it's like your friends, so it's a bias.
Yes, if we are taking a sample, we want it to be a random sample. You probably aren't inviting random people to your birthday party, right? Not a wise move because the people at Curtis's party are his friends. In middle school, we vote for our friends, right? Maybe. Good. Number 6. Tony was measuring angle DBC with his protractor and got 50 degrees. You can't really tell on this one, but this says 130 and this says 50. Did Tony measure correctly? Why or why not? Explain how he did it correctly or explain to him what he did wrong. So the question here is not, the protractor is lined up correctly, so that wasn't the question. The question is, did he measure this angle? Is this angle 50 degrees? And so we start at D and then go to BC. So D, B, C. So I want this angle, right? So Tony was incorrect. Angle DBC is, what's the magical word I'm looking for? Obtuse. Thank you, Shay, for saying that. Is obtuse. So it cannot be 50 degrees. The angle is 130 degrees. Moving on. Dorothy and Gail are each using a protractor and ruler to draw a triangle with one side 4 centimeters long, another side 6 centimeters long, and the angle between the two sides measuring 90 degrees. This was the key. It has to be between the two sides. So, some of you did not use a protractor, which was an interesting choice. But we'll start here. Remember, centimeters are up top here. So I'm going to start at 0 and go to 4. And that is 4 centimeters. And then here I want to go 90 degrees. So I place this appropriately. Put the mark at 90. That's just a guidepost. Again, starting at 0, going towards that line, and I want to go all the way to 6. And this is 6 centimeters. This angle is 90 degrees, so I'm going to draw an angle or a corner. And the only way to complete this triangle is to just complete these 2 dots. That's my only option. So that's what I was looking for. You needed to label the parts appropriately, which I have done. 6, 90 degrees, and 4 centimeters. Now, for the extra. This was tough because we've talked about it a little bit. Is more than one triangle possible with these requirements? No. And the reason that is because if the given angle is between 2 given sides, you can only make one triangle. And a lot of you talked about how if you just flip this around, it's not a different triangle, right? If you just made it like this, if you drew this, it's the same triangle as this, just in a different rotation. All right, that's it. Thank you for joining us on this test. Retest will be next week, almost the last week of school. Good luck.